You're lying awake at 3 a.m. again, aren't you? That familiar weight on your chest, the endless replay of mistakes, the suffocating feeling that you're not who you're supposed to be. You've tried everything, new jobs, new relationships, maybe even therapy, but that void remains. Here's what nobody told you. According to Jung, one of history's greatest minds on the human psyche, this darkness you're experiencing isn't your enemy, it's your initiation. What if I told you that your pain, your struggles, your darkest moments weren't random torture, but rather your soul's way of forcing you through a transformation that 99% of men will never complete? Jung called this the night sea journey, a descent into the unconscious that either breaks you or remakes you into something extraordinary. The Swiss psychiatrist spent his entire life studying why some men emerge from crisis transformed while others remain trapped in cycles of suffering. After analyzing thousands of cases and diving deep into his own psyche, Jung discovered something revolutionary. There are clear, unmistakable signs that indicate when someone has passed through what he called the soul's most painful test. Today, I'm going to share with you the 7 signs that prove you've not just survived your darkest hour, you've transcended it. And if you're still in the thick of it, I'll show you exactly what Jung discovered about navigating this terrain. Because here's the truth that most self-help gurus won't tell you. Real transformation doesn't come from positive thinking or morning routines. It comes from descending into your own personal hell and finding the treasure that's hidden there. Sign number 1, you've stopped running from your shadow. Remember that time you lost it. Maybe you screamed at your kid, betrayed someone you loved, or did something so out of character that you couldn't recognize yourself in the mirror afterward. Most men spend their entire lives running from these moments, building elaborate personas to hide their darkness. But Jung discovered something profound. Everyone carries a shadow, and the less it is embodied in the individual's conscious life, the blacker and denser it is. Here's what this looks like in real life. Tom, a 38-year-old executive, spent years projecting an image of the perfect family man. Charitable, patient, always in control. But underneath, rage simmered. He despised weakness in others because he couldn't accept it in himself. His breaking point came when he nearly got into a physical altercation with a colleague over a minor disagreement. The facade cracked, but here's where transformation begins. Instead of making excuses or doubling down on his persona, Tom did what Jung calls shadow work. He started recognizing his projections. When he felt disgust towards someone's laziness, he asked himself, "Where am I lazy?" When he judged someone's greed, he explored his own relationship with money and power. The sign you've passed this test is not that your shadow disappears, it's that you've integrated it. You can now say, yes, I have the capacity for cruelty, for greed, for cowardice, without being consumed by shame. You've discovered what Jung meant when he said, "I'd rather be whole than good." Quick question for you. When was the last time you caught yourself judging someone harshly, only to realize later you were seeing your own rejected qualities in them? Drop a comment below. I'm curious about your shadow work journey. Practical application, start a shadow journal. Every evening, write down 3 strong emotional reactions you had to other people that day. Ask yourself, what quality in them triggered me? Where does this quality exist in me? This simple practice can accelerate your integration process by years. Sign number 2, your dreams have become your teachers. Jung believed that dreams are the facts from which we must proceed. If you've passed through your soul's test, you're no longer dismissing your dreams as random neural firing. You've started to recognize them as messages from your unconscious, attempting to balance your conscious attitude. Take Marcus, a 42-year-old engineer who kept having recurring dreams about missing flights. For years he ignored them. But during his dark night of the soul, after his marriage collapsed and his startup failed, he finally paid attention. The dreams weren't about actual flights. They were about missed opportunities for psychological development. His rigid, overly rational approach to life, typical of his personality type, was causing him to miss the flight to wholeness. Jung discovered that dreams compensate for our conscious blind spots. If you're overly aggressive in waking life, your dreams might show you running from danger. If you're too passive, you might dream of fighting or asserting yourself. The key insight: when you've passed your soul's test, You stop seeing dreams as entertainment and start seeing them as your inner guidance system. Here's a practical framework Jung used. Every morning, write down your dream immediately upon waking. Don't interpret, just record. Then ask yourself 3 questions. What is the overall feeling tone of the dream? What aspect of my current life situation might this be commenting on? What is the dream suggesting that my conscious attitude is missing? You'll know you've integrated this sign when you start looking forward to your dreams, even the nightmares, because you understand they're showing you the path to wholeness. Sign number 3. You've made peace with your inferior function. This is where Jung gets really practical. He discovered that we all have a dominant psychological function, thinking, feeling, sensing, or intuiting, and its opposite is our weakest link, what he called the inferior function. The soul's test often forces us to develop this weakest aspect. Consider David, a brilliant strategist, dominant thinking type, who could analyze any business problem but couldn't handle his girlfriend crying. Emotions were his kryptonite. His test came when his father was diagnosed with terminal cancer. All his logic and analysis were useless. He had to learn to simply feel, to sit with grief without trying to solve it. Jung wrote, "The psychological rule says that when an inner situation is not made conscious, it happens outside as fate." David's inability to process emotions internally manifested externally as relationship after relationship falling apart. But through his father's illness, he was forced to develop his feeling function. The sign you've passed this test? You no longer see your weakness as something to hide or compensate for. Instead, you've developed what Jung called a transcendent function, the ability to hold the tension between opposites. The thinker learns to feel, the feeler learns to think, the sensor learns to intuit. The intuitive learns to ground themselves in reality. This is crucial, gentlemen. Your greatest growth doesn't come from doubling down on your strengths. It comes from developing your weakest aspect. That's where your soul's gold is hidden. Sign number 4. Synchronicities have become your GPS. Here's where things get mysterious, and where Jung was decades ahead of his time. He coined the term synchronicity, meaningful coincidences that can't be explained by cause and effect. When you've passed your soul's test, these aren't rare anymore. They become your navigation system. Jung himself experienced this profoundly. While treating a patient who was stuck in excessive rationality, she described a dream about a golden scarab beetle. At that exact moment, a scarab beetle flew into Jung's office. The only time in his career this happened. This synchronicity broke through her rational defenses and catalyzed her transformation. But here's what most people miss. Synchronicities increase when you're aligned with what Jung called the self, your total psyche, not just your ego. It's like the universe starts conspiring to help you once you've surrendered to your authentic path. Real-world example, James, 35, was debating whether to leave his corporate job to start a non-profit. The same week, 3 unconnected people mentioned the same obscure book about social entrepreneurship. His old college roommate called out of the blue to discuss a similar transition, and he found a 20 bill on the street the exact moment he was worrying about financial security. These weren't coincidences, they were confirmations. You know you've integrated this sign when you stop dismissing these moments as weird and start recognizing them as guidance. You develop what Jung called an attitude of active expectation, not magical thinking, but conscious participation with the deeper patterns of your life. Action step. Keep a synchronicity log. Note meaningful coincidences, recurring numbers, unexpected encounters. After a month, review it. You'll be amazed at the patterns that emerge, showing you exactly where your psyche is trying to lead you. Sign number 5. You've embraced your myth. Jung discovered that we're all living out mythological patterns, whether we know it or not. The man stuck in his mother's basement is living the puer aeternus, eternal boy myth. The workaholic destroying his family for success is embodying the King Midas story. When you've passed your soul's test, you become conscious of your myth and can choose your role in it. I am not what happened to me, Jung wrote. I am what I choose to become. But here's the paradox. You can only choose your becoming once you've recognized the unconscious story you've been living. Take Robert, a 41-year-old who always played the hero, rescuing others, solving problems, never asking for help. His dark night came when he burned out completely, unable to save his brother from addiction. He had to recognize he'd been living the hero myth so rigidly that he'd become brittle. His transformation came when he learned to embody other archetypal energies, sometimes the wise old man, offering guidance without rescuing, sometimes the fool, admitting he didn't have all the answers, sometimes the lover, connecting rather than fixing. Here's my challenge to you. If your life was a movie, what would the genre be? Tragedy, comedy, hero's journey? Whatever your answer, that's revealing your current myth. Drop a comment and let's explore what story you're living. Jung taught that we need to dream the myth onwards, to consciously participate in our story, rather than being unconsciously driven by it. When you've passed your soul's test, you start being a character in someone else's script and become the author of your own myth. Sign number 6. Loneliness has transformed into solitude. This might be the most profound sign. Jung wrote, "Loneliness does not come from having no people around, but from being unable to communicate the things that seem important to oneself." When you've passed your soul's test, loneliness transforms into creative solitude. Most men fear being alone because it means confronting themselves. We fill every moment with podcasts, social media, work, anything to avoid that encounter. But Jung discovered that individuation, becoming who you truly are, requires periods of profound solitude. Not isolation, but conscious aloneness where you meet yourself fully. Michael, a 39-year-old sales director, used to schedule every minute of his day. Being alone felt like death. His test came during the lockdown when all his distractions vanished. At first, the anxiety was unbearable, but gradually he discovered what Jung called the treasure hard to attain. His own company became not just tolerable, but essential. The transformation looks like this. You stop needing others to validate your existence. You can sit in a room alone without reaching for your phone. You've developed what Jung called a dialogue with the self, an internal relationship that nourishes you more than any external validation could. You know you've integrated this when Friday night alone becomes as appealing as a night out. Not because you're antisocial, but because you've discovered the richness of your inner world. You've learned what Jung meant. Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes. If you're finding value in these insights, this is where I ask you to hit that subscribe button. We're building a community of men who aren't afraid to do the real inner work. Join us on this journey of authentic transformation. Sign number 7. You've discovered your personal myth's connection to the collective. This final sign is what separates those who've truly passed the test from those who've just survived it. Jung discovered the collective unconscious, patterns and images shared by all humanity. When you've completed your soul's journey, your personal story reveals its universal significance. Steve, 44, went through hell when his son was diagnosed with autism. For years he raged against fate, tried to fix his son, nearly destroyed his marriage in the process. His breakthrough came when he realized his journey wasn't just about him, it was about learning a form of love that transcends conventional success. His personal struggle connected him to every parent who'd ever had to release their ego's dreams for their child. Jung wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." But here's what he also discovered. Becoming who you truly are inevitably connects you to the larger human story. Your wound becomes your medicine, not just for yourself, but for others walking similar paths. You've integrated this sign when your personal pain transforms into universal compassion. When you can see your divorced father in every struggling man. When your addiction recovery becomes a beacon for others in darkness. When you realize what Jung meant, the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. The integration practice. Write your story in third person, as if you're a character in a novel. What universal themes emerge? What archetypal journey are you on? This exercise reveals how your personal myth serves the collective healing, so you've recognized some of these signs in yourself. What now? Jung left us a clear path for continued development, what he called the process of individuation. Here's your practical roadmap. First, active imagination. Set aside 20 minutes daily to dialogue with figures from your dreams or imagination. Jung did this himself, filling journals with these conversations. Don't judge or censor. Let your unconscious speak. This isn't visualization or meditation. it's active engagement with your inner figures. Second, study mythology and fairy tales. Jung discovered that these stories contain psychological wisdom about transformation. Read them not as entertainment, but as maps of psychic development. When a story particularly moves or disturbs you, that's your psyche recognizing its own pattern. Third, develop your inferior function. Whatever you're worst at, that's your growth edge. If you're all logic, take up painting. If you're all feeling, study mathematics. Jung found that after age 35, our psychological development depends on integrating these neglected aspects. Fourth, join or form a men's group. Jung believed that certain psychological work could only happen in relationship. Find other men doing this inner work. Not a social club or networking group, but men committed to authentic transformation. Share dreams, discuss shadow material, hold space for each other's journey. Fifth, create something. Jung painted, carved stone, built a tower with his own hands. He discovered that creating with your hands allows the unconscious to express itself directly. It doesn't matter if you're good at it, that's ego. What matters is giving form to your inner world. Here's what Jung discovered that changes everything. Suffering isn't punishment, it's initiation. Every man watching this who's been through hell, who's questioned everything, who's felt broken beyond repair, you weren't being destroyed. You were being rebuilt. Jung himself went through this. From 1913 to 1919, he experienced what he called his confrontation with the unconscious. Visions, voices, overwhelming psychological material that could have been labeled psychosis. But instead of medicating it away or distracting himself, he engaged with it. The result? The psychological insights that would revolutionize our understanding of the human psyche. I have frequently seen people become neurotic when they content themselves with inadequate or wrong answers to the questions of life, Jung wrote. They seek position, marriage, reputation, outward success of money, and remain unhappy and neurotic even when they have attained what they were seeking. Such people are usually confined within too narrow a spiritual horizon. The 7 signs I've shared aren't achievements to chase, they're recognitions of work already done. If you see yourself in even one of these signs, you've already begun the journey most men will never take. You've chosen consciousness over comfort, wholeness over happiness, truth over tranquility. Remember, this isn't about becoming perfect. Jung was clear. The most intense conflicts, if overcome, leave behind a sense of security and calm that is not easily disturbed. You're not aiming for a life without problems. You're developing the psychological strength to hold the tension of opposites, to dance with chaos, to find meaning in suffering. So here's my question for you, and I genuinely want to know, which of these 7 signs resonates most strongly with where you are right now? Are you in the midst of shadow work? Are synchronicities guiding your path? Are you discovering your personal myth? Share your experience in the comments below. Your story might be exactly what another man needs to hear today. And if you're still in the thick of your dark night, if none of these signs feel true for you yet, know this. Jung also said, there is no coming to consciousness without pain. Your suffering isn't meaningless. You're not broken. You're breaking through. The very fact that you've kept listening this far means something in you recognizes these truths. That recognition is your psyche saying, yes, this is the path. Trust it. The journey from who you were told to be to who you truly are, that's the hero's journey of our time. As Jung himself discovered, your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes. The question isn't whether you'll face your soul's test. Life guarantees that. The question is whether you'll recognize it as the initiation it truly is. Welcome to the journey, gentlemen. The descent transforms into ascent. The wound becomes the gift. The crisis becomes the chrysalis. And the man who enters the darkness is never the one who emerges from it. Your soul's most painful test isn't your enemy. It's your invitation to become who you were always meant to be. Remember to subscribe if this resonated with you. We're building a brotherhood of men committed to real psychological work, not surface-level self-improvement. Your journey to wholeness starts with a single click.